Police sirens shattered our quiet afternoon as officers approached my 8-year-old daughter on our porch. Lily looked up with confused, frightened eyes, her bald head shining from chemotherapy treatments. "Daddy, are they here because I look scary without hair?" Our HOA president had called cops on my cancer patient. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The sound of sirens pierced through our quiet Tuesday afternoon like a knife through my heart. I was in the kitchen making my 8-year-old daughter Lily's favorite chicken noodle soup, the only thing she could keep down these days after her morning chemotherapy session, when I heard the unmistakable sound of police cars pulling into our driveway. My blood ran cold. Not because I was afraid of police, after 22 years as a senior officer and the last 5 as police captain of our district, but because I knew exactly why they were here. I had been dreading this moment for weeks, ever since our HOA president Karen Morrison had escalated her harassment campaign against my cancer-stricken daughter. And I knew my little girl was about to face something no child battling leukemia should ever have to endure. You see, 3 months ago when Lily first lost her beautiful auburn curls to chemotherapy, I thought the hardest part of our cancer journey was behind us. We'd survived the devastating diagnosis, the terrifying first treatments, the nights I held her while she threw up from the poison they were putting in her tiny body to save her life. I thought losing her hair would be just another hurdle we'd overcome together. I was wrong. The hardest part wasn't the cancer, it was the people who made her feel ashamed of surviving it. I rushed to the front window and saw my worst nightmare unfolding on our front lawn. 2 patrol cars had arrived, their red and blue lights flashing like a beacon announcing to the entire neighborhood that something was wrong at the Stevens house. Officers were walking toward our front door where my daughter Lily sat on the porch swing, wrapped in her favorite pink fleece blanket, the one her grandmother had bought her when she started losing weight from treatment. Her beautiful bald head, smooth and pale from 6 months of chemotherapy, caught the afternoon sunlight as she looked up at the approaching officers with confusion and fear in her big brown eyes. Those same eyes that used to sparkle with mischief and joy before cancer stole her childhood away. Standing behind the officers like some kind of vindictive puppet master, pointing an accusing finger at my sick child, was Karen Morrison, our neighborhood HOA president. The 55-year-old woman who had made our lives hell for the past 3 months, ever since Lily had lost her hair to cancer treatment. Karen stood there in her perfectly pressed business suit in judgment, looking at my daughter like she was some kind of criminal. This was the same woman who had sent us 47 violation notices in 3 months. The same woman who had taken photographs of my daughter sitting on our own porch and circled her bald head with red marker as evidence of HOA violations. The same woman who had suggested we relocate to a community more suited to our family's situation. And now she had called the police on an 8-year-old cancer patient. I threw open the front door just as Officer Rodriguez, one of my own subordinates, a good man who had worked under my command for 8 years, was approaching Lily with a concerned and confused look on his face. Behind him, Officer Martinez looked equally bewildered, clearly not understanding why they'd been called to what appeared to be a peaceful residential scene. "What's going on here?" I demanded, though I already knew the answer would shatter what was left of my faith in human decency. Officer Rodriguez looked genuinely surprised to see me, his eyes widening with recognition and confusion. "Captain Stevens? I didn't realize this was your address. We received a 911 call about a disturbance involving a minor child causing public disruption." His voice trailed off as he looked at Lily, really looked at her, and began to piece together what was happening. I saw the moment understanding hit him, the way his face changed from professional confusion to personal disgust. Karen stepped forward, her face twisted with that familiar look of righteous indignation that had become the bane of our existence. She clutched a thick folder of papers against her chest like some kind of legal armor, her voice sharp and demanding. "This child has been deliberately violating our community's appearance standards for months," she announced loudly, as if she were addressing a town hall meeting rather than harassing a sick child. "She refuses to wear proper head coverings in public areas, and her disturbing appearance is negatively affecting property values and community morale." I felt the world tilt on its axis. This woman, this absolute monster, had actually called 911 emergency services on my cancer-stricken 8-year-old daughter because chemotherapy had made her bald. "Daddy?" Lily's small voice cut through my rage like a whisper in a hurricane. She was looking up at me with those eyes that had seen too much pain for someone so young, clutching her blanket tighter around her frail shoulders. Her voice was barely audible, shaking with fear and confusion. "Are the policemen here because I'm sick? Because I don't have hair like other kids? Did I break a law by having cancer? In that moment, my heart didn't just break. It was completely destroyed. My little girl, who had fought through 6 months of chemotherapy with more courage than most adults could ever muster, who had faced needle after needle and treatment after treatment without complaint, thought she was being arrested for being a cancer patient. She thought having leukemia was a crime. I knelt down beside her on the porch, ignoring everyone else, ignoring the flashing police lights, ignoring Karen's continued ranting about community standards. All that mattered was my daughter, my brave little warrior who was trembling with fear and confusion. No, sweetheart. You're not in trouble. You haven't done anything wrong, not one single thing. Being sick isn't against any rules, and having cancer doesn't make you a bad person. You're the bravest, most beautiful little girl in the world, and Daddy is so proud of how strong you've been. But Lily's eyes filled with tears that broke my soul. Then why did the mean lady call the police on me? She told Mrs. Johnson next door that I look scary and gross. She said bald kids make the neighborhood look poor and trashy. She said normal families don't want to live near people like us. I had to close my eyes for a moment to keep from losing complete control. Karen Morrison had been filling my daughter's ears with poison for months, making her feel like her medical condition was something shameful, something that made our family unworthy of being part of the community. She said if I don't start wearing a wig or a hat all the time, even in our own yard, she's going to make us move away, Lily continued, her voice getting smaller and more broken. And Daddy, I tried to wear the wig you bought me, but it's so itchy and hot, and it makes my head hurt where the chemo ports are. But I don't want us to have to move. I don't want to leave our house. I looked back at Karen Morrison, and I saw something I'd never experienced before in 22 years of law enforcement. Not just anger, not just rage, but a primal, protective fury that comes from the deepest part of a parent's soul when someone threatens their child. This woman had been systematically terrorizing my cancer patient daughter for months, and now she had crossed every possible line by involving law enforcement. Officer Rodriguez, I said, standing up and facing my subordinate with every ounce of authority I possessed as his superior. What exactly were you told when dispatch sent you to this call? Rodriguez looked increasingly uncomfortable, glancing between me, Karen, and Lily. His face was growing redder by the minute as he began to understand the true nature of what he'd been called to respond to. Dispatch said there was a report of a minor child causing a significant public disturbance by appearing in public areas in a deliberately disturbing and offensive state. The caller claimed the child was intentionally trying to upset and frighten neighbors with her appearance, and that previous warnings had been ignored. Her appearance, I repeated slowly, my voice deadly calm. You mean her bald head? The bald head she has because she's undergoing chemotherapy for acute lymphoblastic leukemia? The color completely drained from Rodriguez's face. Sir, I had absolutely no idea. The caller didn't mention anything about medical treatment or cancer. We were told it was a behavioral issue with a child deliberately trying to disturb the peace. Officer Martinez stepped forward, looking equally disturbed. Captain, if we had known this was about a cancer patient, we never would have responded this way. This isn't a police matter, this is harassment of a sick child. I turned to Karen, my voice carrying the full weight of my 22 years in law enforcement. Ms. Morrison, did you or did you not inform the 911 dispatcher that my daughter is a cancer patient undergoing chemotherapy when you made this call? Karen's face flushed red, but her arrogance remained completely intact. She clutched her folder tighter and raised her chin defiantly. I told them there was a child in violation of community standards who was causing distress to other residents. Her medical situation doesn't exempt her from following HOA rules about appropriate public appearance. Appropriate public appearance? I could barely control my voice. She's 8 years old and fighting for her life. That's not my problem or the community's problem, Karen snapped coldly. When people choose to live in Maple Grove Estates, they agree to maintain certain standards. Those standards don't have medical exemptions. If she can't meet basic grooming requirements, perhaps this isn't the right community for your family. The words hit me like physical blows. This woman was literally suggesting that families dealing with childhood cancer should be driven out of the neighborhood because their sick children didn't look appropriate enough for her precious community standards. Basic grooming requirements? Officer Martinez interrupted, his voice filled with disbelief. Ma'am, are you seriously telling us you called emergency services because a cancer patient doesn't have hair? I called police because this family refuses to follow community rules that everyone else manages to follow just fine, Karen replied, her voice getting nastier and more defensive. If the child insists on appearing in public without hair, she needs to wear appropriate head coverings at all times. I've sent multiple official violation notices with escalating fines, and they've completely ignored them all. That part was absolutely true. Over the past 3 months, we had received dozens and dozens of HOA violation notices demanding that Lily wear a hat, wig, or headscarf whenever she stepped outside, even in our own backyard, even on our own porch. Each notice came with escalating fines starting at $200 and climbing to over $2,000, along with threats of legal action and liens against our property. I had ignored them all, thinking no rational human being would actually pursue legal action against a family dealing with childhood cancer. I had been naive enough to believe that common decency would eventually prevail. I was wrong. Officer Martinez, the second officer who had arrived, stepped forward. "Ma'am, are you seriously telling us you called police because a cancer patient doesn't have hair?" But Karen wasn't finished with her cruel monologue. She opened her thick folder and began reading from her carefully documented harassment campaign. "Since August 15th, I have sent 47 official violation notices regarding this ongoing situation," she announced as if she were proud of terrorizing a sick child. "The residents of Maple Grove Estates pay premium prices to live in a community with high standards, and those standards include appropriate appearance in all common areas." She pulled out a photograph, one that made my blood boil all over again. It was a picture of Lily sitting on our front porch swing, reading a book, wearing her favorite yellow dress. Karen had printed the photo and used a thick red marker to circle Lily's bald head, with an arrow pointing to it and the words, "Violation of Community Standards" written in angry capital letters. "This photographic evidence clearly shows the ongoing nature of the violation," Karen continued, holding up the defaced photo for the officers to see. "Despite repeated warnings and escalating fines, the family continues to allow the child to appear in public areas without appropriate head coverings." Officer Rodriguez stared at the photo in complete disgust. "Ma'am, you took pictures of a cancer patient and marked up her head like she was some kind of criminal?" "I documented a violation of our community covenant," Karen replied defensively. "Documentation is required for all enforcement actions." "You stalked and photographed a sick child," Officer Martinez said, his voice hard with anger. "And then you defaced her image to use as evidence against her." I took the photo from Karen's hands and showed it to Lily, who gasped when she saw it. "Sweetheart, did you know the mean lady was taking pictures of you?" Lily shook her head, fresh tears starting to fall. "No, Daddy. I was just reading my book about princesses. I didn't know anyone was taking pictures. Why did she draw on my head? Why did she make it look like I did something bad?" The innocence in her voice, the complete confusion about why an adult would target her for simply existing while sick, was more than I could bear. This monster had been stalking my daughter, photographing her, and using those images as weapons against our family. "Ms. Morrison," I said, my police captain voice coming out in full force, "are you aware that what you've just shown us constitutes stalking, harassment of a minor, filing a false police report, and potentially violation of federal disability protection laws?" For the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in Karen's eyes. But her arrogance quickly returned, along with a new level of nastiness. "False report? I reported a legitimate and ongoing HOA violation. And there's nothing false about it. Look at her." She pointed directly at Lily, who shrank back against me. "She's deliberately choosing to appear in public looking like that. It's disturbing to other residents, especially children who see her and get scared or upset." "Like what?" I asked, my voice dangerous. "What exactly does my daughter look like, Ms. Morrison?" "She looks sick. She looks wrong. She looks like someone who doesn't belong in a nice neighborhood." Karen's mask was completely off now, revealing the ugly truth underneath. Normal children have hair. Normal children look healthy and appropriate. Normal families don't force the rest of us to deal with their medical problems. The silence that followed was deafening. Even Karen seemed to realize that she had just revealed exactly what kind of person she really was. Someone who thought sick children were disgusting and didn't deserve to exist in her presence. Officer Rodriguez was shaking his head in complete disbelief. "Captain, what do you want us to do here? Because what I'm hearing isn't a community standards issue, it's hate directed at a disabled child." Officer Martinez nodded in agreement. "Sir, this isn't police business. This is discrimination and harassment." I looked down at Lily, who was listening to everything with wide, frightened eyes. My little girl had been through so much already: endless doctor visits, painful treatments, nights spent throwing up from chemo, watching her beautiful curly hair fall out in clumps in the bathtub. She had endured all of that with incredible bravery and grace. And now this woman wanted to make her feel ashamed of surviving. First, I said, my voice carrying all the authority of my position. "I want you to document everything Ms. Morrison just said. Every word. Every photograph. Every violation notice. This is going to be evidence in multiple criminal cases." "Now wait just a minute," Karen interrupted, her confidence finally starting to crack. "I have every right to enforce HOA rules. This community has standards that we all agreed to when we bought our homes, and just because someone is sick doesn't mean they get to ignore them." "You're right about one thing," I said, stepping closer to her. "People don't get to ignore rules just because they're sick. But you seem confused about which rules actually matter." I pulled out my phone and began scrolling through the photos I had been taking of every violation notice she'd sent us over the past 3 months. "Let me share some of your rule enforcement with these officers, Ms. Morrison. You told 911 dispatchers that a child was causing a public disturbance. You failed to mention that the disturbance was a cancer patient's medical condition. That's a false report designed to waste police resources and harass a sick child." Officer Rodriguez was shaking his head in disbelief. "Captain, what do you want us to do here?" I looked down at Lily, who was listening to everything with wide, frightened eyes. My little girl had been through so much already: endless doctor visits, painful treatments, nights spent throwing up from chemo, watching her beautiful curly hair fall out in clumps. And now this woman wanted to make her feel ashamed of surviving. "First, I want you to document everything Ms. Morrison just said. Then I want you to explain to her the legal consequences of filing false police reports and harassing disabled individuals." "Now wait just a minute," Karen interrupted. "I have every right to enforce HOA rules. This community has standards, and just because someone is sick doesn't mean they get to ignore them." That was the final straw. "Lily, sweetheart, go inside with Officer Martinez. He's going to show you his police badge collection while Daddy talks to the mean lady." Once Lily was safely inside, I turned to face Karen Morrison with 22 years of police experience and the fury of a father whose child had been attacked. "Ms. Morrison, let me explain something to you. My daughter has acute lymphoblastic leukemia. She's been in treatment for 6 months. Do you know what that means?" Karen crossed her arms defiantly. "It means she's sick. It doesn't mean she gets special treatment. It means she's 8 years old and fighting for her life. It means she's endured chemotherapy that would bring a grown man to his knees. It means she's lost her hair, her energy, her childhood, and some days her hope. And now you want to make her ashamed of surviving?" I stepped closer, my voice getting quieter but more intense. "It means that when she sits on this porch, the only place she feels well enough to get fresh air, she shouldn't have to worry about some petty tyrant making her feel like a freak." "I'm not making her feel like anything," Karen protested. "I'm simply enforcing community standards that everyone agreed to when they bought their homes." "Community standards?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Show me the HOA rule that says cancer patients can't have bald heads." Karen fumbled with her folder of papers. Section 4.3 clearly states that residents must maintain appropriate grooming and professional appearance in all common areas. That section applies to things like overgrown lawns and peeling paint, not medical conditions. What you're doing is discrimination against a disabled child. She's not disabled, she's just sick. Cancer is a qualifying disability under federal law. What you've been doing for the past 3 months constitutes systematic harassment of a disabled minor. For the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in Karen's eyes. But her arrogance quickly returned. "Well, I'm sure your lawyer can sort all that out in court. Until then, the HOA rules stand and I expect compliance." "Actually, Ms. Morrison, you're not going to court. You're going to jail." Karen blinked. "Excuse me?" I turned to Officer Rodriguez. "I want you to arrest Ms. Morrison for filing a false police report, harassment of a minor, and violation of federal disability laws." "You can't arrest me," Karen shrieked. "I'm the HOA president. I was performing my official duties." "Rodriguez, what's the penalty for filing a false police report?" "Up to 1 year in jail and $5,000 fine, sir." "And for harassment of a disabled minor?" "That's a felony, sir. Up to 5 years." Karen went pale. "This is ridiculous. I'm calling my lawyer." "You can call your lawyer from jail," I said calmly. "Officer Rodriguez, please read Ms. Morrison her rights." As Rodriguez began the Miranda warning, Karen's composure finally cracked. "Wait. This is all a misunderstanding. I didn't know she was. I was just trying to maintain property values." "By terrorizing a sick child?" "I wasn't terrorizing anyone. I was just enforcing rules." I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I'd been taking of every violation notice she'd sent us. Let me read you some of your rule enforcement, Ms. Morrison. I scrolled to the first message. September 15th. The minor child residing at 1247 Oak Street continues to appear in public areas with an inappropriate bald appearance that negatively impacts community aesthetics. Karen shifted uncomfortably. September 22nd. Final warning regarding the deliberately disturbing appearance of the minor child. Immediate compliance required or legal action will follow. I looked up at her. Deliberately disturbing appearance? She's bald because of chemotherapy. October 3rd, I continued, you sent a photo of Lily sitting on our porch with a note saying, photographic evidence of continued violation, and circled her head in red marker. Officer Rodriguez stopped reading the Miranda rights and stared at Karen in disgust. You circled a cancer patient's head in a photo? October 10th, I kept going, you sent a letter threatening to put a lien on our house if the aesthetic violation wasn't corrected within 48 hours. And my personal favorite, I said, my voice dripping with contempt, October 15th, the bald child's presence in common areas continues to disturb other residents and create an unwelcoming environment. Consider relocation to a community more suited to your family's situation. The silence that followed was deafening. Even Karen seemed to realize how her words sounded when read aloud. You told us to move because our daughter has cancer, I said quietly. You suggested that a family dealing with childhood leukemia should relocate because our sick child's appearance bothers you. Officer Martinez came back outside looking shaken. Captain, your daughter just asked me if she's going to have to go to jail because she doesn't have hair. She wanted to know if being bald is against the law. That was the moment something inside me snapped completely. I turned to Karen Morrison, and when I spoke, my voice carried the full weight of my authority as a senior police officer and the absolute fury of a father protecting his child. Ms. Morrison, you are under arrest for harassment, filing a false police report, intimidation of a witness, and violation of federal disability protection laws. You have the right to remain silent, and I strongly suggest you use it. As Rodriguez put handcuffs on Karen, she finally seemed to understand the gravity of what she'd done. Please, I didn't mean. I was just trying to maintain standards. You were trying to bully a cancer patient, I said coldly. And you picked the wrong family. But the story was far from over. That evening, after Karen had been booked and processed, I sat down with Lily for the hardest conversation of my life. Daddy, she said, curled up in my lap wearing her favorite princess pajamas, am I really scary looking because I don't have hair? My heart broke all over again. Oh, sweetheart, no. You are the most beautiful little girl in the whole world. Having no hair doesn't make you scary, it makes you a warrior. A warrior? The strongest, bravest warrior I've ever known. Your hair fell out because you're fighting bad cells in your body, and the medicine that fights them is so powerful that it affects your hair too. But that means you're winning the fight. Lily touched her smooth head thoughtfully. The other kids at the hospital don't have hair either. Are we all warriors? Every single one of you. Then why did the mean lady think we look bad? I struggled to find words that would help an 8-year-old understand adult cruelty. Some people don't understand that being different isn't the same as being bad. The mean lady was scared of things she didn't understand, and instead of learning about them, she tried to make them go away. But Daddy, I can't make my hair grow back faster. The doctor said it might take a long time. And that's perfectly okay. You don't need to change anything about yourself. The mean lady was wrong and she's going to face consequences for being wrong. Over the next few days, Karen's arrest made local news. The story of an HOA president calling police on a cancer patient sparked outrage throughout our community and beyond. The headline HOA Karen calls police on bald cancer patient went viral on social media. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of people reached out to support Lily, including other childhood cancer survivors who shared their own stories. A local wig company offered to donate beautiful, high-quality wigs if Lily wanted them, not because she needed to cover up, but because she deserved choices. But Lily surprised everyone with her response. I don't want to hide my warrior head, she announced at dinner one night. I want other kids to see that warriors don't always have hair. The community rallied around us in ways I never expected. Neighbors who had been too intimidated by Karen to speak up before came forward with their own stories of harassment. We discovered that Karen had been systematically targeting anyone who didn't fit her narrow vision of the perfect neighborhood. She had fined a veteran with PTSD for having an unkempt lawn during a particularly difficult period. She had harassed an elderly man with Parkinson's disease for having shaky handwriting on his mailbox numbers. She had tried to force a family with an autistic child to keep him inside during quiet hours, because his stimming behaviors were disruptive. The pattern was clear. Karen Morrison had been using her HOA position to wage war against anyone she considered different or imperfect. 3 weeks after her arrest, Karen's preliminary hearing took place. I testified about the months of harassment our family had endured, presenting all of her threatening letters and violation notices as evidence. But the most powerful testimony came from an unexpected source. Dr. Sarah Martinez, Lily's oncologist, took the stand to explain the psychological impact of Karen's actions on a child already dealing with life-threatening illness. Children with cancer often struggle with body image issues related to their treatment, Dr. Martinez explained. Hair loss, weight changes, and other physical effects can make them feel self-conscious and different from their peers. When adults in authority positions reinforce those negative feelings, it can cause severe psychological damage. She looked directly at Karen as she continued. What Ms. Morrison did wasn't just harassment, it was psychological abuse of a child in a vulnerable medical situation. Lily came to my office asking if she was ugly because of her baldness. She wanted to know if her cancer was gross to other people. No 8-year-old should have to feel ashamed of surviving. Karen's lawyer tried to argue that she was simply enforcing HOA rules, but the evidence was overwhelming. The judge, a stern woman who had clearly lost patience with Karen's excuses, delivered a verdict that sent shockwaves through the community. Ms. Morrison, in my 25 years on the bench, I have rarely seen such a clear case of targeted harassment disguised as official duties, Judge Williams said. Your actions toward this family, and this child in particular, represent a fundamental failure to understand basic human decency. The judge sentenced Karen to 6 months in jail, 2 years of probation, and 500 hours of community service at the local children's hospital. She was also ordered to pay $50,000 in damages to our family and permanently banned from holding any HOA leadership position. But the real victory came from the changes that followed. The state legislature, prompted by Lily's case, passed new laws protecting individuals with medical conditions from HOA discrimination. The Lily's Law became a model for other states, ensuring that no other family would face what we had endured. Our HOA underwent a complete restructuring with new bylaws that explicitly protected residents with disabilities and medical conditions. The new president, Mrs. Chin, was a nurse who understood that communities should support their most vulnerable members, not attack them. 6 months after Karen's arrest, Lily's hair started growing back. It came in curly and wild, different from before but beautiful in its own way. But by then, something important had changed. Lily no longer felt ashamed of her bald head. Even as her hair grew back, she proudly showed photos of herself during treatment to other kids, explaining that being bald was part of being a cancer warrior. "Look, Daddy," she said one afternoon, showing me a drawing she'd made at school. It was a picture of herself without hair, wearing a cape and a big smile. At the bottom, she'd written, "Super Lily the Cancer Warrior." "I want to show this to other kids who are scared about losing their hair," she said. "I want them to know that warriors come in all different ways." A year later, Lily was declared cancer-free. Her hair had grown back into gorgeous curls, and her energy had returned along with her mischievous smile. But she never forgot the lessons she'd learned during her fight. She started visiting the children's hospital, bringing drawings and small gifts to kids currently in treatment. She'd show them photos of herself bald and beautiful, proving that cancer couldn't steal their worth or their strength. Karen Morrison served her full sentence and moved away from our community after her release. I heard through the grapevine that she lost her job and her social standing, becoming a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked authority and prejudice. But I didn't waste time thinking about her. I was too busy being proud of my daughter. On the 2-year anniversary of her cancer diagnosis, Lily did something that brought me to tears. She asked if she could shave her head again just for one day, to show solidarity with kids currently fighting cancer. "I want them to know they're not alone," she said simply. "I want them to know that being bald is beautiful when you're fighting for your life." So we did it. We shaved off her beautiful curls and she spent the day visiting young cancer patients, showing them that she chose to look like them because she was proud of what they represented: courage, strength, and hope. That night, as I tucked my brave little girl into bed, she said something that I'll never forget. "Daddy, I'm glad the mean lady was wrong about me being scary. Because now I know that being different isn't scary, it's powerful. And I want to use my power to help other kids." I kissed her smooth head and whispered, "You already are, sweetheart. You already are." Karen Morrison thought she was protecting her precious community standards by attacking a sick child. Instead, she created a warrior who would spend her life protecting other vulnerable children from people exactly like her. In the end, Lily's bald head, the thing Karen found so disturbing, became a symbol of hope and strength for countless other families facing childhood cancer. The very thing Karen tried to hide away became a beacon of light for those who needed it most. And every time I see Lily helping another scared child facing cancer treatment, I'm reminded that sometimes the most beautiful thing about a person is exactly what small-minded people find most threatening: their courage to be authentically themselves, even when the world tells them they're not enough. The mean lady thought being bald made Lily look scary. But she was wrong. Being bald made Lily look like exactly what she was: a survivor, a warrior, and a beacon of hope for anyone brave enough to fight for their life. And that's the most beautiful thing in the world.